We made this crazy new sci-fi action movie for all the frenetic young people, but we also put the words Star Trek in the title and had characters named things like Kirk and Spock to draw in all the boomers. We made this ridiculous time-traveling robots movie, but we also hacked in that big funny Austrian guy so that all the crusty old fans come to see it. We spent absolutely insane amounts of money on this big franchise and crapped out a movie series to catch all the general theater goers with its visual spectacle and crazy action, as well as hooking those pesky fans with meaningless references and similarities. And all this is done with the goal of appealing to a broader audience. But why do most movies made to appeal to a wider audience, or broader audience, or modern audience fail? And with that in mind, how do you make a film that actually appeals to this elusive, broader audience? If it wasn't clear from the thumbnail, today we'll be exploring The Incredibles, a film which succeeds in pleasing droves of little kids, older kids, and even teens and adults, a film which lives on today as a certified animated classic. Appealing to kids is not hard, and The Incredibles does it effortlessly with its impeccable cast of funny, unique characters, fantastic comedy that goes well beyond simple quips, exciting action with real stakes and peril, and even child characters they can relate to. But kids will watch anything. When I was 7, Cars 2 was one of my favorite movies. But what does The Incredibles have that so many kids' movies, and heck, even action blockbusters don't? Simply put, The Incredibles was written for adults by talented storytellers, but made appropriate and fun for children. That's a bit of a loaded statement, so let's unpack it. A second ago, I went over how this film easily appeals to kids, and because these elements are executed so well, we adults can admire them too. But what makes The Incredibles written for adults first? A whole bunch of things, actually, but I'll go over the big ones. A man literally jumps off a building. Not something you'd normally see in a kids' movie. As we know, Mr. Incredible saves him, but what really elevates this above kids' media is rather than a cheesy dialogue taking place where the man is all like, "Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Incredible, I never should have done that, I'll try living better." This man literally did not want to be saved, and he has no gratitude, so he literally sues Mr. Incredible, and by extension, the very idea of superheroes. And he's able to do this as supers act as a form of law enforcement in Brad Bird's world, and because they're supported by the government can shut them down.
Hey, aren't you curious about how I get around so fast? See, I have these rocket boots.
Go home, buddy.
What?
Now.
And of course there's Incrediboy, who Mr. Incredible rejects. It would be a very classic kids movie move for them to team up, and he becomes the goofy sidekick the kids can relate to. But hold that thought. It'll be relevant later. So the supers get shut down, and we don't get some cheesy scene where all the supers are being arrested or routed out or something. They just go under, which perfectly transitions to Bob's life struggles. We get an extended scene as Bob is working, then fired from an insurance agency. Yes, an insurance agency! They didn't even attempt to give him a simple situation kids could easily understand. He's not a construction worker or a truck driver or a police officer. No, he's in insurance! And of course there's a scene where he gets fired featuring the hilarious boss character. While the boss is very funny and little kids can laugh at him, many won't understand what's actually at stake here and what this dynamic between unhappy boss and employee all means. Before I go any further, I want to make one thing clear. I don't think kids are brainless. Older kids and smarter kids will be able to grasp a lot of what's going on in this film. So when I say kids, it's not a blanket statement for all beings under 14. Anyway, we see Bob struggling with the bleakness of his life. He lost his job and misses the action of his younger years. So literally, it's a midlife crisis. The family struggle scenes are fantastic. The kids can relate to the trials of having siblings or being in school or having crushes, and the parents can relate to Bob and especially Helen trying to prevent their kitchen from turning into the next Vietnam War. But what kids probably can't relate to is Bob going undercover to do super work without telling his wife, resulting in the oh-so-awkward argument scene. Brad Bird pulls no punches with this scene. This couple is ripping into each other. Helen mad at Bob for his selfish obsession with the glory days and being incredible, and Bob losing his mind over the lameness of society. And they only stop because the kids were listening. I like the maturity the Parr parents display here, in that they don't tell the kids to scat so they can continue yelling at each other. They try and calm them down, assure them that everything is okay. But what's also very mature is how the film doesn't use this argument as some kind of revelation or turning point. All the problems they had are still there. The argument didn't fix anything. And the problems continue as Bob gets the tablet from Mirage. Brad Bird somehow managed to make this scene of listening to a message intense, as you learn that it'll self-destruct like Mission Impossible, and Bob scrambles for a pen, and Helen calls to him. What a way to make such a mundane exposition dump exciting.
Millions of dollars worth of equipment
Is
and
someone
research.
in there?
It's the TV, trying to watch.
Because of its highly sensitive nature.
Why would Bob claim to be watching TV as a silky woman's voice is coming from his closed office? Yes, Helen begins to be suspicious of Bob. That's another thing that happens in this film that flies right over every child's head.
Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
I'm not going to bore you guys with a play-by-play of the entire movie. I just wanted to go over that chunk in detail as it contains the groundwork for the many mature themes. Oh yeah, remember Incrediboy? As we all know, he returns, transformed into Syndrome, a truly terrifying villain. Not necessarily terrifying due to his power level, but due to his immaturity compared to his wealth of power. Sort of like Titan from Megamind. Syndrome is another thing that really separates this from common kids media. It's not an uncommon trope for the old protagonist to reject the help of younger characters, only then to soften up and team up. It's great for kids' stories as they can see themselves as the young heroes. But Brad Bird turns this on its head, as the aspirational pubescent was ruined by his hero rejecting him at such an important time in his life, leading him to become this vengeful man-child who will kill as many people as he needs to get back at Mr. Incredible. And the rest of the film features so many well-crafted moments of suspicion, self-doubt, depression, regret, but it's not all dark and dank. The family is able to truly come together when Bob apologizes for his secrets and selfishness, and accepts that he alone doesn't need to be the Incredible. And we get a bunch of wholesome moments as the family reunites and becomes stronger than ever. It's not just the gritty undertones that make The Incredibles so appealing to adults. It's the fact that it's handled so well, given priority over the comedy. The characters are so real, and the resolutions are so beautiful. Making a film that appeals to all ages is not a checklist of kids elements and adult elements you must include. And it's certainly not a checklist of nostalgia bait and exciting new things to hack into your script. This may not be a satisfying answer, but filmmaking is an art. And weaving these elements together in such a beautiful way requires talented artists. And no matter how talented you are, most films just won't be for everyone. The Incredibles is an extremely unique case because it's a story that really can appeal to everyone. It's a grounded, drama-filled, action-packed, funny, and wholesome story about the struggles of a family of superheroes. A film which manages to surpass its genre and draw in many who really don't care for superheroes. People who to this day have watched little to no MCU films. Brad Bird didn't need to take goofy detours for out-of-place characters and jokes, because the story just works for everyone the way it is. Of course, The Incredibles isn't the only film which everyone seems to like. Top Gun Maverick united every action fan, as well as many others who may not be into the macho guns and explosions. Though with the vast majority of media doesn't have such luxury. I adore media like Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Terminator, but the simple fact of the matter is, not everyone is into these. At their best, these franchises knew exactly what they were and exactly who they were for, and they played to that audience. That's why to this day, those of us who are into them still go back and watch the old stuff, while pretending the new try-hard fan bait doesn't exist. My piece of encouragement to all you aspiring creators out there, as well as Hollywood executives, is to know your audience. Don't try to pander or shoehorn incompatible elements into your story to cast a broader audience net. It's better to make something a few crowds adore than something every crowd's indifferent to. You've been watching The Fudgebot, and if you happen to enjoy, don't forget to drop a sub, as I'll be back with more content.